All right, welcome back in, everybody. Some technical difficulties. We made our way through it. I am back here, of course, with Jeff Morton, Colorado Sports Guys podcast, Andy Feinstein, founder of Fire George Carl and later Denver Stiffs, and an OG. But we're going through the history of the Denver Nuggets right now to kind of start things off. The history of the Nuggets versus the Lakers. We did 1979. We did 1985. 1987. We're now in the era where Denver was not quite as competitive. Lost in the first round to the Lakers 3-0. Denver had a 37-45 record that year. The Lakers were 65-17.
So this is the good old days of the NBA. So there's good and bad of only having 23 teams, but you could literally make the playoffs if you had 37 wins.
Yeah.
And it's going to sound crazy to the modern fan, but in the 80s, the Lakers were awesome and everybody else kind of was mediocre. Where in the Western Conference, whereas in the Eastern Conference was stacked. The Eastern Conference had the Celtics and the Bucks and the Bulls and the Sixers and the Hawks and all these great teams. But anyway, in '87, Nuggets, Lakers. Would the Lakers win that year?
65-17, and that's arguably the best Lakers team ever, and some might even say the best team ever.
Yeah. So 65 wins. The Nuggets have 37 wins.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a 28-game delta. But anyway, the best part of this series is before the series even starts. Someone in the press asked Doug Moe, who we named Denver Stiffs after, what chance do the Nuggets have of beating the Lakers? And he looked at the report. He's like, what are you talking about? We ain't got no chance of beating the Lakers. Now, he did that on purpose, though.
Yeah.
He was being candid, but he was actually, he wanted to get his team a little fired up. It was also a dig at Pat Riley because he and Pat Riley had this rivalry, and Pat Riley really felt like that comment was that Doug Moe's way of disrespecting the team and disrespecting the game.
Really?
You come out, you come out and play no matter what. But the Nuggets lost Game 3 in that series, 140-103 at McNichols. So it was.
My memory of that series was there's a lot of clowning going on by Magic Johnson. A lot of behind the back passes. In fact, I think that game he hit a half court shot.
He hit a half court shot.
Yeah.
He did hit a half court shot in McNichols. I won't guarantee that it was in that game, but he did hit a half court shot in McNichols.
It was 87 because I had to look at that every CBS break. I had to look at that.
He does hit a half court shot in McNichols.
Oh, right. It was like the highlight that they just kept showing.
Oh, my God. It was insufferable. I hated it.
Well, it was really, and I should remember my history better. What's remarkable about it, though, is the 84-85 Nuggets were legit, conference finals. The 85-86 Nuggets were legit. They went into a Game 6 second round against the Houston Rockets, lost in, I think, double overtime in McNichols Arena to the Ralph Sampson, Akeem Olajuwon Rockets in the second. I mean, they were legit.
Yep.
And then the wheels came off in 86-87. Maybe there were injuries or something. But 87-88 is arguably the best Nuggets team of the 80s. And they don't get a rematch with the Lakers, unfortunately. So that was a good era. They just had a dip year. I don't know why.
They had a dip year when the Lakers had their best year. I mean, that was the best Lakers year.
Yeah.
And, of course, they go on to they do they win it that year?
They beat Larry.
Yeah,
That was the first time Magic beats Larry.
Right.
The first time.
There
First
you go.
of two.
And they win in 88 as well.
No.
No, first of two to beat Larry. He beat Larry twice.
No, he beat him in 85.
I just said that. We said 85.
No, 87 we were talking about.
Yeah. Sorry. Second of two.
Second of two.
Sorry, you're right.
The next time the Nuggets... So then the Nuggets era, the Doug Moe era ends a couple years later. And
prematurely.
And then we go through a decade of... I mean, there was a couple little highlights sprinkled in, but there's no playoff rivalries to be spoken of at that point. 2008, though, you get back into the Carmelo era, and people don't... The Carmelo era is kind of funny, the way it's remembered historically, because it really was, I would say, three eras. It was the pre-Iverson era, the Iverson era, and the Chauncey era. And this was the Iverson era. It's really the pinnacle of the Iverson era because 2008, you lost in the first round, 4-0, by the way.
Right.
Again, when people look back fondly on the Melo era, that's my era. That's where I'm coming of age. I'm a college kid and everything else. But there was only a handful of... I think Carmelo Anthony has 16 wins, not series, wins total in the playoffs. And you think, well, that was over 7 seasons.
Does he have that many?
Well, they almost all came in one. 4, 8, 9, 10. So he had 10 in 1 year, and then 6 in every other year.
Right.
All the other series they played. This one was a sweep, 4-0. And what was weird about this year, the Nuggets had 50 wins and was an 8 seed with Iverson. The team wasn't great, but 50 wins is usually a 4 seed. They were 8. They snuck in.
And they barely made it. I mean,
this
so this was the season that launched the ship. I was a disgruntled Nuggets fan, splitting my time between Denver and Los Angeles. I should know better, but I was in my at the time early 30s. I'm getting egged on to launch a sports blog, and a lot of my friends and fellow season ticket holders felt like, this is unacceptable. I mean, we've had George Karl, we've had Carmelo Anthony, we've had these number 1 through 4 picks on our team: Kenyon Martin, Marcus Camby, now Allen Iverson, and we're garbage. We're garbage on the floor. We're garbage off the floor. We've laid down and died every year. We've lost to the Clippers. The Clippers hadn't won a playoff series ever, I don't think, since they became the LA Clippers.
Right. The Clippers lost. I'm with you.
Right?
Because they ran into like the Spurs,
Right.
and you're like, all right.
The Clippers one was the worst.
But the Clippers were like dead the Nuggets. It's like, come on.
They tanked to get the Nuggets.
Right. That's right. They tanked to get the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And so, and I as a season ticket paying fan, I'd had it. I said, when you buy a ticket to a sporting event, you don't expect them to win. But they should put the same amount of energy and effort into trying to win as I put into earning the money to buy that ticket.
Right.
You're a taxpayer. And so anyway, that launched firegeorgekarl.com because I felt like in the what should have been, again, my opinion, the greatest season in Nuggets history.
Right.
We had Iverson, we had Melo, we had Camby, we had a healthy Kmart. We had all these things going for us. Turned out to be a debacle. And yes, they won 50 games, but they barely won 50 games. And 50 is not that tough. That means you win 75% of your home games and half your road games.
Right.
So they barely made the playoffs. They got smoked by the Lakers. They didn't just lose. They got smoked with no effort. And that was where George Karl called J.R. Smith out for being, what did he say? Wasn't paying attention. It was a loser. What was it?
Yeah, killing grass.
I don't know. George Karl went after J.R. I'm like, really, George Karl? Of all the reasons this didn't work, it was because of J.R. Smith.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Joel Embiid saying, "I need 3 more teammates."
Right.
Which I'm happy to talk about after he stole Jokic's 3rd MVP. But anyway, so that was a debacle against the Lakers. And but fire George Karl. People can say what they want. Fire George Karl worked.
Yeah.
Because it got everyone's attention.
Yeah.
It got everyone's attention. And the next year, the next season, addition by subtraction. So Camby's out, Iverson's out, Chauncey's in, Kenyon's fully healthy, Nene's healthy.
Chris
and
Anderson.
they played a little bit harder. Yeah. And they played a little bit more aggressively. And they won, I think, 53 games the next year?
54.
54,
Oh,
yeah.
54,
But it was
sorry.
also a different,
Different dynamic, but that Fire George Karl worked because the intent of Fire George Karl wasn't
pressure.
to fire George Karl.
Yeah.
It was to get your guys' asses
right.
into gear and give us an effort on the floor, and it worked.
And people that don't know, real quick, 2008, this is pre-social media. I think Twitter launches in 2007, but it's not what it
Yeah.
is. Facebook is a different thing. This is when blogging was fresh. It was new. It was a way. And if I recall, the story is you launch this, Deadspin picks it up, and it's not like, some fan made a thing. It became a story.
Well, no, here's what happened, real quick. So George Karl's lawyer, who became a personal friend of mine,
Brent Adams.
in the middle of the night, sent me a threatening email to sue me into oblivion.
Yeah.
Okay, if I say anything defamatory,
Right.
which I was in the entertainment business. I know what
Right,
defamation is. And so I called my lawyer. I'm like, what should I do with this? He said, put the letter on your website.
Perfect.
And that's when Deadspin picked it up. Bill Simmons picked it up.
Yeah.
The Wall Street Journal picked it up. Right. And overnight, Denver Stiffs became, maybe at the time there were 2 or 3 Nuggets blogs. It went from 1 of 3 to the only Nuggets blog. So I owe you, Brett Adams, a lot of credit. And Brett and I still keep in touch. We've been friends to this day.
This is your superpower, by the way.
This-
Pissing people off en route to a friendship.
Well, I need-
That's my superpower.
I have to add some things to that particular year. This is the year after the We Believe Warriors.
That's right.
They won 48 games that year,
Right.
and barely missed the playoffs. That was a stacked year in the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference was garbage,
Right,
complete garbage. But one of the things about that team that was so frustrating is that you have Marcus Camby. When did Camby win Defensive Player of the Year?
He may have won it in 07,
I think it was 07, 08.
Yeah.
And that is the most mocked
Right.
Defensive Player of
Yeah.
the Year ever. I think Tim Duncan was openly laughing about it.
Because he was an actually great defender, Tim
Right.
Duncan. So
And people love Marcus Camby now, and I get it because he's more of a modern era player. But that was part of this whole stew. And then they lost. And that's the year Melo screams at George on the bench, "Don't just sit there, do something."
Yeah.
and he's throwing stuff at George, and it was bad.
And that series wasn't close, by the way. 3 of the games were blowouts.
Oh,
it was 20 points in every game.
These are the days when Melo refused to show up for the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, it was a disaster.
And real quick, just to kind of put a button on this one, that Lakers team was hungry. Kobe and Shaq had split years before. Kobe had been in the desert trying to drag a bad team. They get Pau Gasol that year, and it was immediately the Lakers are the story again.
Yep.
So they came into
He
that
won
one.
MVP, I think.
I think you're right in 2008.
Yeah.
And this is why this year for them, it was one of those ones where it was like nobody's stopping the Lakers. The Lakers are on a mission. And I say that to say, so far, if we go back, 79, kind of a blah year for the Lakers. 85, big year for the Lakers. 87, big year for the Lakers. 2008, big year for the Lakers. 2009, we now get there. This is conference finals, 54 wins. Nuggets a 2 seed. Lakers a 1 seed. By the way, Lakers had 65 wins. So they had 11 more wins than the Nuggets, even though the Nuggets were the 2 seed that year. But the Lakers had lost in the finals. So Kobe had almost made it, and now it was like, hey, so that was a team that was, again, especially on a mission and felt like, I hate to give them this credit, they felt a little bit like a team of destiny, and I think the Nuggets were the spoilers of that. The best team they ever had, great leader. But the story was, can the Nuggets beat the Lakers? The Lakers are going, this is their arc.
I went to all 6 games, L.A. and Denver. So I was still going back and forth.
Commuting.
I went to all 6, all 6. And I remember we played them really tough. It was 2-2. If George Karl, I hate to pick on George because George has become a friend too. Back to my superpower. But I mean, it's just science. I don't know why you'd put a 5'11" Anthony Carter as your inbound man.
Yeah.
When Trevor Ariza and Lamar Odom, who are nearly 7 feet each, are guarding the inball pass. We have a guy at Denver Stiffs whose name is inbounding lob pass for that era. Okay, that's his username. Just stupidity.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in LA. I think it was we had them, but I think we still split in LA, and we split back in Denver.
And then
But I'll tell you,
5-6.
so I was there for Game 5 in LA, and the Nuggets played. If you look it up, the Nuggets played close to a tie in Game 5, close to a tie.
It was a close game.
But in the second half of Game 5, the Nuggets imploded and got their butts kicked.
Yep.
And I knew going into Game 6,
It was done.
we were in big trouble.
Yep.
I found out after the fact that the night before Game 5 in LA, the guys just couldn't help themselves.
Oh, my God.
And I'm not going to mention specific players' names because I don't want to get in trouble again. But I'll just say they were out way past what would be the reasonable hour on the eve of a Western Conference Finals game.
That's so infuriating.
And they were done. And they were done.
That's the worst story I've ever heard.
And I remember Game 6. It was almost like Kobe was just waiting, and he assaulted. I shouldn't use the word assaulted Kobe. Kobe. Well, I could say he assaulted the Nuggets.
All right, well,
Kobe.
sure.
I didn't say sexually assaulted. Kobe just decimated the Nuggets in Game 6 in Denver. Just decimated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that quote.
Decimated. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He Eagle counted him.
That's terrible. That's worse than what I
Yes, here's
allegedly.
Here is the problem with the way that series unfolded. Game 1, the Nuggets never should have they had the game in their hands and they let it slip away. And obviously the inbound pass is what everyone remembers. But the Nuggets at one point in the first half were up by 15.
Wow.
And the Lakers were just not prepared for how the Nuggets were going to play. The Lakers reeled them in, and it was still close at the end. The Nuggets did the same exact game plan the next game and won. And that's the famous Chauncey throwing the pass off of Kobe's back and doing that thing. Game 3 was messed up because of J.R. Smith deciding to taunt Sasha Vujacic at the end of the third quarter.
I don't know how you remember this.
Of all people, Sasha effing
the machine.
Vujacic, yes, who he hit a 3-pointer, looked down at him, and it got a technical foul, and it was ridiculous. All right, and that completely sucked all the Nuggets momentum out of that game. It was just such a stupid thing to do. And they did learn their lesson because JR did something similar in Game 4, but the Nuggets were up by 18 at the time. But Game 5, and when I talk about this, it wasn't the second half. It was the fourth quarter. The Nuggets just did not show up. That's the fourth quarter where Kmart grabbed onto Pau Gasol's leg.
All right.
And it was just they were doing things that were just stupid.
Their size made a big impact down the stretch of that series. They just became. I think in the game 6, the closeout game, they might have had like 30 offensive rebounds or something.
Insane.
They
This
just
was also
completely
good
dominated.
George Karl, bad George Karl in the exact same series, right? Like good George Karl. Like think about like the 1996 Seattle Sonics. You know, the Bulls are up 3-0. You know, they go into who gives a F mode, and they were the first team ever to not get swept after being down 3-0, and they actually scared the Bulls. And I think this was the same thing. George was like, come out in game 1, punch him in the mouth. But when it came to those game-to-game and in-game adjustments, you know, that's bad George Karl, and they couldn't figure them out.
So we've got
But
Kareem.
you're right. The Lakers. You're making. I'm with you on your thread.
Right.
That Lakers team was going.
Yeah.
That team, they were the team of destiny, and the team of destiny doesn't always make it. But
Yeah.
I just am saying that there is a recurring theme. So the first year is Kareem's Lakers, pre-golden era for them. Then it's Magic's Lakers, Kobe's Lakers, and then you get to 2020, and it's LeBron's Lakers. So we're talking about the history of basketball as told.
2012.
Did I miss one in 2012?
2012.
Yeah.
All right.
2012.
Well, 2012.
Tail
You're
end
right.
of Kobe's Lakers. That's an interesting series.
All right, let me
Yes, it
hear
is.
it.
That's a really talk about this one because this is the JaVale McGee. This is the
Oh,
JaVale
that's
McGee
right.
It's the
$100
JaVale
million
McGee
series.
Yeah.
This is I love Masai Ujiri, but oh my God, your boy. But this was the series the Nuggets got down 3-1. Game 5, they go to
Were they down 3-1?
They were down 3-1.
Okay.
So this is old Kobe, and this is post-Melo.
But this is Mike Brown was coaching the Lakers.
And this is the post Melo trade,
Yeah.
and this is the team that goes on to win
Rudy
57
Fernandez.
games.
Yeah, Rudy Fernandez
And-
was on the Nuggets.
Yeah,
And
the year before the
big 57 win
12,
one.
the 12-13 team. This is
Right.
the 11-12 team.
This
Yeah.
is after a trade two trades that Masai Ujiri pulls out. This was the strike year or the lockout year, and they have a team that has JaVale McGee coming off the bench. You still have Costa Koufos and Timofey Mozgov and stuff like that.
All-time
Right?
stiff.
And so Game 5 rolls around, and suddenly JaVale McGee, people in the comments will remember this, JaVale McGee goes off. And I mean, he goes off. The best game
Will
of his
Chamberlain,
career.
basically.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was watching it at Jake's with you guys, and we were like,
Will Chamberlain.
stunned. Our mouths are on the ground. Charles Barkley was like, at the end of the game, was like, I can't believe JaVale McGee, of all people, did this.
Yeah.
And it was like unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And then they come back to Denver. They cream the Lakers, just completely cream them. Do you know why they lost game 7?
In LA.
Guess who came back from suspension after being suspended for the first 6 games of that series?
Oh man, who was it?
Meta World Peace.
Oh, that's
Ron
right. That's right.
Artest.
That's right. That's
He
right.
was suspended for the first 6
For
games?
the first, because this is the elbowing Harden in the face.
Oh, God, you have a good
Suspension.
memory. Jeff, this is why you got to bring Jeff in. He's got a great memory.
So
That's right.
I can remember this, but I can't remember how to function in life. So
That's his superpower.
Yes, it is. He after that suspension, he comes back, locks down Gallo, who they had was the Nuggets X factor in that series, and locks him down. And Steve Blake has a career game. Steve Blake.
So this is why, and we'll talk about this when we get to 2023. I know we got to talk about 2020, but this is why Game 7s,
Yep.
shit
you
happens.
never know what happens. Yeah.
Shit
And
happens.
so be careful.
There is something cool though about if they would have gotten that one, because that era of Nuggets, for me personally, I never had faith in them as a title contender.
Right.
You just want to do something cool. And so 57 wins, for example, was cool. It makes that year worthwhile and memorable, and we all get to connect with it. But if you get to beat the Lakers and play spoiler with a bad team, that makes us see, you're like, I don't even care. They get swept in the next round. Who cares?
I know.
Remember we knocked out Kobe and basically
know.
ended his playoff
Yeah.
career? Opportunity missed. But we got to keep moving. 2020, of course, is the bubble year.
Right.
This one's hard to categorize because as I'm doing this thing where I'm talking about teams of destiny, the bubble to me, in hindsight, is a very frustrating year. Right. I do feel like for some reason a Lakers narrative emerged out of the ashes of a regular NBA season that turned into this catastrophe, and then they became the symbol of like, we're back and everybody rally around the Lakers here. Right. And the Nuggets, to me, were the team of the bubble. They came back from 3-1 twice. They were this miraculous team. And, for me, that series, I don't think the Denver Nuggets were ready. I mean, that was like the first year where they kind of were breaking into the top tier of NBA teams, but they weren't quite there yet. So I don't hold this like lost opportunity or anything. But when I think back to it, game 2, so game 1 they play, Jokic is in foul trouble the entire game. This is a frustrating game. He's in foul trouble. They lose. Game 2, again, tough game. Like this, Jokic in the end of that game scores 11 straight points. 11 straight points, including what was going to be the game winner. He gets it over the Anthony Davis jumper. They score. And then Murray shoots an air ball, and Jokic, without looking at the basket, taps it like this into the basket. It was the most miraculous little tip shot.
Yeah.
It was like NC State, the way they won the game. It was almost like that, only it was backwards.
Jim Valvano running
with
around.
2.1 seconds left. And of course, what does everybody remember that game? You were shaking your head going like as if you didn't remember.
Anthony Davis.
What everybody?
No, I remember.
Because it's one of those things where that would have been a thing we said. Remember when Jokic had 11 straight to close out a game and steal the game?
I don't remember, and here I am, a huge Nuggets fan. I literally don't remember him scoring 11 straight. I remember Anthony Davis.
But what we all remember is 2.1 seconds left. Mason Plumlee and Jeremy Grant, who maybe weren't the most motivated to stay inside the bubble. By the way, this is a real story. I don't ever take credit away from the Clippers or from the Nuggets for beating the Clippers, but there were a lot of reports of Clippers players that didn't want to be there anymore.
I wish I could share it, but when we're not on camera, I got some great Clippers scoop.
There were a lot of players that were, let's just say, I don't know if it was consciously sabotaging their team because I don't think that happened. Same with the Nuggets. I don't think anybody was, but to win a championship, you have to imagine it takes every ounce of your soul. And I just think there were some guys that were like, do I really care to be here? And so anyway, Nuggets lose that game. And I think that was kind of the series.
Yeah.
Denver was more competitive in games 1 through 4 than I think anyone will remember.
Right.
But 5-game series is a 5-game series.
Yeah. No, I remember Mason Plumlee not getting out or forgetting to get out on Anthony Davis.
I think he just switched without telling anyone.
And I think there was a miscommunication with he and Jeremy Grant, wasn't it? And it was just like, oh my God. And in the back of my mind, ever since that game, I keep thinking maybe that's why Mason wanted to leave.
that was the seventh time the Nuggets have lost to the Lakers, right? And now we're at
But to the point here, the Lakers on all of these years were the team of destiny from a narrative standpoint. Some of this is just that the Lakers are always the story, but some of this is actually historically. You look at it, Magic's Lakers, whatever. This year to me is a little bit different because the Lakers are not the team of destiny. They were in the play-in. The Lakers were a team that had been counted out. Now
they were 33 and 37 like 2 months ago.
Like 2 months ago, they've, in my opinion, I have like some Lakers friends I talk to on a daily basis, and they're trying to drum up this "we believe" story about underdogs, and I'm always thinking like this is hilarious to me that the Lakers of all teams. I just went through a history of an entire organization over 50 years, and we're just the footnote in their story over this.
Underdog,
so it's kind of funny to try to drum up that storyline. But I look at that one and I go, this is the first time, for me, it feels like the Nuggets should win. Not that they can win, but that they should win.
Oh, no, it's actually an upset if we lose, if that's what you're saying. I mean
it's a slight upset statistically, but yes.
But no, I mean,
that's meaningful.
We're favorite. I mean, the odds makers are on the Nuggets. We have home court advantage. We've never played better, to your point. We've played well all year long. I mean, the Lakers just got their act together a month ago, basically.
Right.
Maybe 6 weeks ago. So, anyway,
but hold on a second, because in another way, the story outside of the David Thompson, for one, the story was it was Magic's league, it was Kobe's league, it was LeBron's league. Right now, Jokic a 2-time MVP. He's such an unexpected guy to inherit the league, and even at this moment, it feels weird to say. But this series, to me, represents that.
Yep.
We've never, even though Jokic's a 2-time MVP, we've never had a guy that was the face of the league. And I don't mean that from marketing. I just mean it from who does it go through. And to me, we're not there yet. But that's what this one represents that was never the case before.
Well,
that's a great point.
There's a reason the Nuggets are the number 1 seed. I always have to, I feel like I'm talking crazy that I have to remind people of this. The Nuggets are the number 1 seed in the West.
Right.
They're the reason. And I think that last month of the season has poisoned people's brains. Basically, the Nuggets, saying, you know what, we got this. We don't have to try very hard. And not try very hard, that is burned into people's brains. They valued their health over absolutely everything. They wanted to come into the playoffs 100% healthy. And you know what? I cannot say that they made the wrong decision.
My only nitpick is they've put themselves in a tough spot. Should Boston make
That's
the
true.
finals
Right.
because the Nuggets. I always think you should at least play to have the best record because you never know, and that could be an issue. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll take NBA Finals appearance all day long.
Yes.
Right.
But I am a little worried about that in the back of my mind.
Well, so I want to ask some legacy questions now because you guys have been fans for so long. How is the city of Denver different from 1985?
Oh man, tons different. I mean, in the most meaningful way, tons of transplants moved in.
This is the number one thing to me.
Yeah, because I'll tell you why. This is 100%. I've gone over this on my podcast, and I've told Andy this. This is what happens. People started moving into Denver when the Nuggets were at their absolute worst. They were moving in from places like LA. They were moving in from Boston. They were moving in from Chicago. A lot of people from Chicago. All these people were moving in. They had no incentive to switch allegiances because the Nuggets in the 90s, particularly about 95 to 2003, were awful.
And not only awful, just not cool. There was nothing about them that got you to say, hey, why would I do this? It's like the Rockies right now.
Yeah.
If you move here, it's like, oh, you got to be a Rockies fan. They're like, why? Because we lose every game and they make decisions that never make sense.
100%. That's absolutely it. And that's why. So people, when they come in, they invade a building because they moved in when the Nuggets were dog crap.
Right.
And now they're not.
But people, this is why I wanted to bring this up, is whenever I see the old clips of the teams in the 80s, the Doug Moe's Nuggets, there was just an enormous amount of pride in the crowd. It was a Nugget, and whenever we have Alex English on the show, he's been on a few times now, he always says, oh man, those fans were something else. They always had that building rocking, and you wouldn't see anything but Nuggets in the, and you think 1985, 2023, couldn't be more different.
Well, there's a couple of, and I don't have the statistics in front of me. In fact, I've done the business show here before. We've talked about this a little bit. The inflationary increase of ticket prices is not even close to relativity to what, so what a ticket cost in 1985, versus what it costs today. I'm just making this up. But like, I think, for my, I'm not going to talk about what I pay for my seats, but it's a lot of money. They're
For
more
the
than,
current ones, you're saying.
they're more than double, I think, of what an equivalent ticket would have been back
Right.
then. So we've priced the real Denver fan out of the building.
Right.
A lot of the tickets are now bought by corporations as a business expense, which is legitimate. I have no problem with that. And then you add the transplant component to it. So you add all those things in. I don't think the fan base is quite as, I hate to say authentic, as it was in the 80s, is my guess. Because you have a lot of transplants, it's a lot of corporate tickets, and you've probably heard this bemoaning about a lot of arenas across the country.
Yeah, it's not just a Denver thing, but I think it's especially a Denver thing.
But I think that, just with my real estate and my business hat on, I love the fact that Denver's exploded into a 3 million person metro area.
Right.
I think we are the best second tier city in America. I think that I've never seen more Nuggets gear in the last 2 years or maybe 3 years than I'd seen prior. Also, and this is going to sound a little tacky, but you love this stuff. Our brand is really cool. We got good colors. We got a good font. Like, I hated the powder blues.
I did
That's
too.
because
Yeah.
Kiki Vandeweghe went to UCLA, so all of a sudden we're UCLA's colors.
Somebody from not Colorado coming in and making it thing that this is, and again, I hate to critique the Nuggets, like people behind, players, front office, whatever. The Nuggets marketing to me, they have so many people that are not from Denver, and you can always tell when a decision was made from somebody that is not from Denver. To me, a team, it's about civic pride, and there needs to be some historical anchor to it. So it's an aside, but to me, it's an important thing.
Yeah, like I didn't. It's Jeff's beloved team, but I didn't love the maroon and
the skyline?
Was it mauve? What was the red?
It was like
no, that was the maroon. What was the
maroon
blue?
and navy blue?
Maroon and navy blue.
Are you talking about the 90s?
Yeah.
You didn't like that one?
That one didn't make a lot of sense.
Well, you're right, because it was so different.
And then and the team was garbage.
Right.
And then in the OOs, the powder blue was awful. And
if you took the name off of the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s Nuggets, just took the logo off and said, how many different teams are this? You'd be like, oh, that's 5 different teams.
But the late 70s, the 80s font and logos and gear, and then what we're seeing now, and they've had some aborted attempts on trying to honor it, but fair enough, at least they're trying. It's way better. So I think there's a cool factor to it. I don't know what else.
But what were the Nuggets? So, because I actually had this question about brand and identity. So, what were the Nuggets of the 80s? The Broncos have obviously always been king because it's football. But was it cool to like the Nuggets? Was it everybody liked the Nuggets?
By the time
was it hipster?
We get to the late 80s,
not hipster.
They were not. In fact, the big revisionist history has always been the rainbow skyline was always popular.
Yeah.
That was not true, folks.
Right.
By the time they changed the colors, it was you didn't want to be caught wearing a rainbow skyline. It was when they changed to the navy blues. That was the cool thing because everyone in the 90s had that same goddamn stupid design. And it was just a 90s thing. It's a relic of its era.
I like it because I think I was a kid, so that's like the era where.
Right.
So I love the jerseys.
I always talked about relative to the Broncos. So I said the Broncos were the firstborn.
Yeah.
They're like the star of the family who goes off to an Ivy League school and has 3 medical degrees and does really well. The Nuggets were the second child that lived in the shadow of the first child. Tried really hard, just never had the success of the first child. The Rockies are the newborn, and the Avalanche are the kid you adopt from a foreign country. So I always looked at our four, and the Rapids are like an accident. So those are like the 5. Those are like the five kids of Nuggets of Denver fans, sports fans. But the Nuggets in the '80s, it was
Rapids fans are pissed right now.
in the Nuggets of the '80s. I mean, my own brother, my flesh and blood brother, who's my best friend in this whole world, was a fucking Lakers fan.
Doesn't make sense.
And it was not uncommon for kids in Denver to be Bulls fans. I was a Dominique fan, even though I was a Nuggets fan.
Bulls fans,
Celtics fans.
Yeah.
It was not like the coolest thing to do. I'm just being frank, right?
No, it's fine. You're right.
And I'm sure when the team was good, they had asses in the seats, and McNichols was rocking.
It's like the Rockies right now. It's just not cool to be a Rockies fan, I think, is the hard part. And the team doesn't reward you with that. So to say, I'm all
also,
in.
you gotta remember, the Broncos in the 80s had John Elway.
Yeah.
An iconic, a Jokic, an iconic transformational athlete. We love Alex English. We love Fat Lever. But I'm just telling you, kids didn't have Alex English Fat Lever. First of all, you couldn't buy a Fat Lever poster because it didn't exist.
Right.
There was only one Alex English poster. And if you went to an NBA kid's house in the 80s, he had Magic and Michael and Larry on the wall. Right?
Well, let me like he has the coolest poster. I mean, it's the Superman poster.
Superman.
Oh yeah.
That is the best poster ever. And
They don't do this stuff anymore because players are too cool.
I know.
They're too protective of their brand to put on the spandex underwear.
Oh, those were awesome too. When the Nuggets had the annual team photo.
Oh yeah.
For the Rocky
Western bar thing.
Rocky Mountain News. Yeah,
I like that.
But anyway, I loved being a Nuggets fan growing up. We lived and died with it.
Yeah,
we loved it. But we were definitely the minority.
But here's the thing I always wonder. So we talk about lines of demarcation, and it's hard to go back and say they could have won 85 or whatever, but if the Nuggets win, I always think the Broncos were a team that was never going to win a Super Bowl, and then they won one. And now I think people in Denver think of them as a championship organization. That's the thought. That's how you think of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just think if the Nuggets do ever win one, it'll be a clear line to say there was the BC and the AD of Denver Nuggets basketball, where it's like, no, this is a championship organization. There's no reason we can't win next year and the year after and the year after.
Sorry to interrupt. I said this to Jeff just the other day. The last 5 years of the NBA have inspired me. If the Milwaukee Bucks, so my mom's from Milwaukee. My grandma was a Russian immigrant to Milwaukee, so the Bucks were always my second team. I never thought in my life the Bucks would win an NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to win an NBA championship.
Right.
They won an NBA championship. The Toronto Raptors, that my good friend Masai Ujiri runs, they won an NBA championship.
Right.
The Warriors won an NBA championship.
And after that, they're a
with
dynasty.
7th pick, an 11th pick, and a second round pick, and now they're a dynasty. So in the modern NBA, and this is credit to you, Adam Silver, and credit to you guys what you're doing, we can win.
Right.
Yep.
And that's a big deal. That's a big difference from the 80s. That's a big difference.
What do you think? What would a championship mean, Jeff?
Oh my God! I would. Well, but before I answer that, he's the biggest Terry Cummings fan ever.
Yeah,
right here.
I love Terry Cummings.
But
The Stiffs of the East. The Bucks are the Stiffs of the East.
right, Del Harris. I remember. No, wait,
Paul
okay.
Mokeski, Randy Brewer. I mean,
You're right. But Kesky, man,
they're the Stiffs of the East.
I can't
Sidney
wait for
Moncrief,
20 years
yeah.
when people show pictures of Jokic saying the league back then was terrible. Look at these guys.
There was.
Anyway, Adam, you gotta go first. That's a tough question. What would it mean to Denver?
Well,
That's a
I
huge
can
question.
I can only say
You can even say you personally.
what
to
it
be
would
honest.
mean to me, because look, I remember being euphoric when the Broncos won. It finally won in
beyond euphoric.
'97.
It is also a
98.
thing that people that don't know.
Other than my two children
Again,
being born, like the greatest
because I'm
day.
so big. We started this bar because of civic pride. Like we think there's something to a city coming together for a thing. When the Broncos won the Super Bowl for the first time, everybody in the city was celebrating it.
Right.
I don't know if it would be that way now just because of how fragmented it is, but it's hard to state that for a month after the Super Bowl, it was the thing you did when you met anybody, grocery store checkout. Everybody was sharing in this glow of what had just happened. And it did feel in a weird way like the city had changed for a period of time.
I'll give you this anecdote. My grandfather died less than a month after they won the Super Bowl. And he was season ticket holder since 1967, right? At that old Mile High Stadium. And he got to, right before he died, he got to see them win. It's the happiest moment. He sat there in a Broncos hat saying, this is the happiest moment of my life, right? For me, personally, a Nuggets victory would mean twice
Right.
what a Broncos one did, because the suffering with the Nuggets is infinite. And
greater than the Broncos. The Broncos at least made the Super Bowl.
My old podcast colleague, Ross Martin, said he said the Nuggets fans were the greatest fans in Denver. He said because to put up with the shit that we have put up with through this whole time,
right,
you have to be dedicated.
Right.
And that is why if they won, it would be the happiest moment, one of the happiest moments of my life.
So there are 30 teams in the NBA. 6 haven't made it to the NBA Finals. Am I right?
Yep.
6. The Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Timberwolves.
Right.
The
Pelicans.
The New
probably.
Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
The LA Clippers.
Wow.
Okay.
Can you get all of them? So Nuggets won.
Hold on, I'm getting to that. Yeah. Who am I missing? It's a pathetic list of teams. I mean, literally everybody else has at least made
a
NBA
finals.
Okay.
Oh,
everybody else has made an NBA
the
Finals.
Pacers?
Oh yeah, they made it.
Yeah,
Reggie Miller?
2000.
Yeah,
You're right.
Even the
You're
Indiana Pacers have made it, and it'll come to me who
It's gonna get- it's-
I'm missing one.
bugging
but
me.
we're one of 6 who've
Sacramento?
Sacramento.
no, they have. The Rochester Royals made the NBA.
Oh,
Finals.
yeah, you're right.
They count
Oh, wow.
it, which is stupid.
Yeah, that's
but-
a little weird.
Or maybe the Cincinnati Royals. They count it
yeah.
anyway. But the Denver Nuggets have never made. They've never even made it. To your point, and to me, it would. I mean, at the end of the day, also, and you and I have talked about this. It's also the sport you play.
Right.
So you and I grew up playing
Yeah.
basketball. Maybe you played football. I didn't play football. So basketball is the sport I played. So I've always been a Nuggets fan first over a Broncos fan. Although I was literally in tears when the Broncos won their first Super Bowl. It'll mean a lot. And then for the city, I don't know, you guys have to tell me though. I was living abroad last year. I was not here. I was physically not here when the Avalanche won.
Right.
I mean, what was that like?
I'm not a hockey fan, so
Well, it was. I would say it was different from the first one because, again, I just think that there's less monoculture than before. That's just become fragmented a little bit.
Right.
But nonetheless, I think with the Avs, them winning last year was not a surprise because they had won before, and you just don't feel this sense of,
Right.
oh, they'll never get it. Even though they were the favorite, I think if like Denver's the favorite right now, but it feels still like, come on. They're not going to win. They're not going to get past LeBron. They're not going to get past the Lakers. And to me, that's what it represents is one, we see this in our numbers from what we do. Every round you go further, it like doubles. The people that pay attention double. Right. And it's on ABC and it's easier to access and all this stuff. But it doubles. And I do think that the payoff of winning one, it just changes to where this becomes a Nuggets town. Right now it's a Broncos town and it's an Avs town. And then the other teams are kind of there for like, hey, pick and choose if you want. But if you win one, you just become you become a championship organization in a way that's like, of course we could win next year. Of course we could get free agent player, whatever. I'm not saying it'll happen, but the sense of inevitability, I think, lifts.
even the Rapids have won
By the way, the other franchise that hasn't been to an NBA Finals is the Grizzlies.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
the Nuggets,
Vancouver
it's
Grizzlies.
the Nuggets and the Clippers.
Yeah.
And 4 new teams.
This is a real who's who. You're right when you start to think of Pacers, Magic,
Right.
You know, like Sacramento Kings.
And that's
you
why-
start to think of like, really, they're ahead.
And that's why the New York Times wrote that article at the outset of the playoffs about the Nuggets' history.
a great article,
It was
by
a
the
great
way.
article.
Yeah.
We are the one that has the most lovable, loyal. It's Nug Life. I don't know if you came up with that one.
Yeah.
You know, we're the most lovable, loyal fan base. We've gotten nothing for it. To Jeff's point,
I'm not lovable,
And we've had. And by the way, and look at all the tragedy we've had along the way. You know, like Jokic has no Murray 2 years in a row because
Right.
of the ACL. 2013, they win 57 games.
Lose Gallo.
Danilo goes
Yeah.
down. 1994, biggest upset at that time in NBA history, taking down the Sonics. Fonz blows his knee out in the
Right,
offseason.
right.
Fat Lever in 88, Alex English in 85. We've never, ever, ever had a fair fight.
The chances are few and far between, but every time
Yeah.
there's a chance, something seems to come
Yeah,
down from
I want-
above and zap
so
it.
that's why this is
metaphorically knocking on wood here.
Yeah.
I honestly, it is a lot of its health, but in the grand scheme of things, like I said, I can't speak for the city of Denver. I can speak for the city of Jeff. And
The city of Jeff.
and no, it's an unincorporated county.
Okay.
And I can only say that for me, as someone who always preferred the Nuggets over the Broncos, which is a very small minority of people in this town, it would be the biggest thing on the planet. And even though I am not as connected to the team as I was even 2-3 years ago, I feel it. And I am looking forward to the moment where the final buzzer sounds, and I'm probably crying like a baby.
Hopefully right here with us at the bar. But I will say this, though. The Jokic piece of this is now interesting because I always wonder with you guys, you're so connected to Alex English, Doug Moe emotionally. You're so connected to Fonz, and you're so...
God, yes.
And even the George Karl era, I know I'm not trying to take that from you. I'm just saying you guys all have your own era.
Yeah.
Is this era to you your era? Do you feel that way? And do you feel like Jokic? To me, Jokic is like the guy God sent to me. You know? Do you feel that same way?
You know, my only I've been disconnected.
Yeah.
As you know, and it has nothing to do with Jokic. And I feel bad. I text with Coach Malone all the time.
Really?
Like, we keep in touch. He's awesome. We keep in touch. But you're a dad. I'm a dad. You know, family first. I just haven't, like, I used to go to, when we first became friends, Adam, I used to go to 35 of 41 home games.
Yep.
35 out of 41. I think I went up to 15 this year. You know, it's a pain in the ass to watch them on TV.
Yeah.
I have to, like, get my username and password from my DirecTV account at work and patch it into my TV at home. And anyway, so I just don't feel as connected as I should. You know, I haven't missed a single, at least I haven't been able to attend them all in person, but I've been watching every single playoff game very closely the last couple of years.
But Jeff, Jokic to me seems like, you being a guy of history, he seems like the ultimate Nugget.
Look,
Jokic is the ultimate Nugget.
I mean, he's a
Yeah.
second rounder.
Yeah.
He's aloof.
Yeah.
He's
No,
all these
yeah,
things.
no,
He's
he's-
actually stiff in some
Carmelo,
ways.
in some ways, was like, you know, a star that was given to us. Jokic was a scrub.
A stiff.
Well,
That
right.
stiff that was given us to us that became a star.
this is the best way I can describe this. I'm old. And when you get older, you revert back to when you remembered loving the team. And for me, that's always a 94 team. That the Nuggets could win 5 finals, and I will be more emotionally attached to that 94 team all the time because it was the most unique thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was 16, 17 years old.
Very
when it
formative,
happened.
yeah.
You know, so it was there. But I will say that the better way for me to answer this would be not about it not being my team. It's about my organization. And the Nuggets in general, them succeeding would mean the world to me.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what era it is, them doing and finally getting over the cliff would be it. And my days of being emotionally attached ended 25 years ago. But right now, I'm about as invested in a Nuggets team as I have been in ages. I mean,
Yeah.
what about you?
Oh, yeah. But by the way, I've said this before. I've written about this. The Carmelo era Nuggets, which on the one hand, give them a lot of credit. I mean, they picked up from the trash heap, the ashes, as you said, Adam, from the late 90s and early 00s, and they got us to the playoffs, what was it, 11 straight times or whatever it was. So give them a lot of credit. It was just a hard team to root for. You know, Carmelo was hard to root for. Kenyon Martin was hard to root for. J.R. Smith was hard to root for. They were hard to root for. It has nothing to do with their, you know, it was just very hard to root for. They never ingrained themselves in the city. I remember I went to a Carmelo Anthony charity event that he didn't show up at, you know, whereas this team, like Jamal Murray, yeah, he was a 7th pick. He went to Kentucky, but he wasn't a first pick. I
Yeah.
think he's really embraced being here. Jokic, obviously the all-time underrated story, underdog story. This team is lovable, and like I'll give you credit. You've been preaching this for a long time about this team. This is
Right.
a great team to root for, and I like Coach Malone. You
Me
know?
too.
I mean,
You know, you think about Doug Moe, New Yorker, come to Denver. Larry
Yeah.
Brown, New Yorker, come
Yeah.
to. I just kind of feel like there's a little.
I
Even
love
George
Coach-
Karl is a Pennsylvania
love
East
Coach
Coaster,
Malone.
come to
Yeah.
Denver. They
I
all
love
have
Coach
East
Malone.
Coast energy. It's like a through
And I
line.
gotta say, like I like what KCP's bringing to the team. I feel like we have like an athletic version of TR Dunn. I just and Adam. The other thing is like in the OOs, in the early aughts.
Yeah.
There were guys on the team that I just despised.
Right.
Like, I can't.
Yeah,
root
yeah,
for,
yeah. It's a
like-
little
like,
weird.
I can't root for Ruben
Yeah.
Patterson.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't care that he wears my jersey.
Reggie
I can't
Evans.
Root for him. I can't root for Reggie Evans. I can't. Like I can't think of a
The
single
first Joker.
Yeah, I can't think of a single guy on this team.
Yeah.
I can't root for. Anyway, there's not a single guy on this team that I can't root for,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's why I feel like this one will be really special. And it all starts tonight, of course. Nuggets Lakers game 1. It's just it's a special year, and I hope it goes different. I'm always set up for disappointment, but this is the first year I'm expecting.
Let's do this. So I know you have lots of shows and lots of guests, but if we make it to the finals, let's have a reunion.
Let's do this again.
100% in. And I was even going to say, like,
be drunk
if it's here
during
at
it.
home, watch it. Denver, you're going to be at the game, Andy. But Jeff, maybe be at the game.
A
I
finals
know,
road game, I'm coming here.
but that's what I was going to say,
Okay.
especially if they
It's
have
the
a chance to
finals.
close
Yeah.
out on the road.
If
I
I'm-
hope you guys are here because I want us to be
If I'm
together.
not-
for
We got to
that.
be together.
We got to be
Yeah.
together.
If
for
I'm
that
not a
one.
tight end, I'll be.
And by the way, so just because I'm going to take this about my calendar, and I don't want to jinx anything, but I've already put all these blocks on my calendar.
Yeah, I love
so
it.
nothing
Yeah,
else
yeah.
comes
Just
up.
to be safe.
Yeah,
in
just to be
case.
safe.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget, Colorado Sports Guys. You really should be subscribed to it. Jeff is the historian of Denver Nuggets basketball, and of course, Andy Feinstein. Anything you want to plug or promote?
I want to plug her
Yeah,
promote.
Denver Stiffs
Yeah, what
now
do you
over at
do
Mile High
that-
Yeah,
Sports.
so Denver Stiffs is now at Mile High Sports. It's in survival mode through the rest of the postseason, which hopefully it's a long postseason. But
Yeah.
we are going to sit around a table together in the offseason and figure out what it should be. And
The OG Denver Nuggets.
the
blog.
OG Denver. But look, we are grateful to you for bringing us on today.
Yeah.
I have nothing to plug. Let's just go Nuggets, beat the fucking Lakers. Enough already.
Yes.
Enough already. All right,
Let's do
And
it.
I'll
Let's do
be
it.
there tonight, so I look forward to seeing people in the arena tonight.
Go Nugs. Hit that like button on the way out.